got a banger here today because there's more on the line than just a comparison. Last time, we had the Insta360 Go 2 sizing up against the GoPro Hero 10, and while the Go 2 did show us a good time, the usability of these two devices were quite different. That's why the Go 2 put in a phone call to its bigger brother, the Insta360 One RS, who will be joining us today with a plethora of new and interesting features that we'll be checking out along with the Hero 10. Thanks once again to Insta360 for providing us with this cool device. Without further ado, let the facts speak. This is what a normal action cam looks like, and this is what you can do with the Insta360 One RS. Thanks to its detachable dual lens setup, they live up to the 360 in their name and also allow you to take a ride on top of the world. These crazy features aren't a common trend in action cams. In my opinion, these kinds of perks are what you'd want if you're going to be shooting footage in these conditions. We'll get more into detail on this later on, so let's take a leap right into our comparison of the main lenses. And just a side note, the one on the Insta360 is called the Boost lens. You're able to record footage up to 6K 25 FPS, but we actually recommend settling for 4K 30 FPS like we did here, and we'll let you know why soon enough. If you watched our last Insta360 versus GoPro comparison, I already mentioned there that the GoPro does a pretty good job at its maximum resolution, which is 5.3K at 30 FPS. The video quality is quite similar, and the few visible differences are often about how the software interprets the scenes, like in this one here, where the Hero 10 is able to stabilize a dynamic range about half a second faster than the One RS, but that's pretty much it. I think it's also fairly obvious that the One RS prefers the scenes to be slightly brighter, while the Hero 10 goes for a darker look, and this is honestly a matter of preference. Except in scenes where it's dark enough already, in which to me, the One RS tends to stand out more. Last thing I want to mention about the general quality before we move on to a few details about the stabilization feature is that if you crop the footage in on a certain point, you'll have more detail on the side of the GoPro the further away you look. While this isn't the biggest deal because your focus will mostly be on your near surroundings, it's still a point that I feel it's worth mentioning. So, about the stabilization. There's one mode on the Insta360 and three on the side of the GoPro in the form of standard, high, and boost. In this case, boost is a maximum video stabilization with tight cropping, and as you can see in the footage, the frame is pretty much cropped in. This in turn poses a question. Which one do you think is more important? Having the full field of view or ensuring the footage is stable? The way I see it is, depending on how you're using the cameras, you'll be provided with a choice. Sometimes you might need a great amount of stabilization, and GoPro will have you covered. But sometimes, you might just be on a scooter going down a straight road in which you'll most likely prefer a wider FOV and won't need this feature that much. All in all, I can see some really good uses for the different stabilization features on the GoPro, as the cinematic type of footage can give you some extra ideas to play around with. Speaking of these extras, the GoPro Hero 10 has something called a SuperView, which ensures the frame is even wider than the widest it can usually get. Just pause the video here and there and check out the cars and buildings to see how they look, and feel free to let us know your opinions as well as giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our lovely channel to make our effort worth it. This feature is definitely a plus, and sometimes you may be in a circumstance where you want or need to get more into the frame. More as in more details. But what if we wanted more resolution? Then we'd have to check out the 6K 25 FPS setting on the Insta360 One RS. The reason we said we wouldn't recommend this feature unless you're using it to record a video without moving the device is that the stabilization doesn't really connect well with the feature. There's slight jitters even when driving on a flat road, while the Hero 10 is fairly stable at 5.3K resolution. As we showed you at the start, the 4K footage of the One RS is really good, so sticking to that would be in your best interest until they fiddle around a bit with their 6K while also optimizing the stabilization. But if you're like, no, I want to use this feature, then my advice would be what I already told you. Use it without moving the device, and fear not, we already did this so that you would have a better understanding of how it looks. All good? Alright then, let's get on with one of my favorite modes, which is called Time Shift on the side of the Insta360 and Time Warp on the side of GoPro. It's a stabilized video that is sped up during post-processing, turning it into a cool feature. In the example we have for you, the automatic brightness adjustment of the Hero 10 seems to be more stable in the Insta360 when you pay attention to the sky and how the visuals change as I'm moving forward. Besides this, both cameras put up a good performance and the quality is awesome as usual, with the usual differences in contrast and color reconstruction, which is as always based on your personal preference. So, what about slow motion? This is usually one of my favorite parts because if I was going to use one of these cameras, I would for sure be trying this out while doing some tricks. The footage is identical at 60 FPS with good quality and stability, while 100 and 120 FPS are also quite similar, aside from the fact that the Hero10's frames are slightly smoother, as the water and the sprinklers movements are easier on the eyes, but you'd have to be specifically looking out for it, so it's not that big of a deal. This kinda changes at 200 and 240 FPS though, as because the resolution is 1080p on the side of the One RS, I'd personally not use it because the footage is too pixelated for my taste. It won't bother you that much if you're using a smaller screen, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, let's take a quick look at the differences in audio. This is going to be the audio quality test of the Insta360 One RS, and we're going to be comparing it to the GoPro Hero 10. Now these are action cams, and of course, you can put a lot of effects in post-processing, but sometimes you just want the audio to be crisp and clear. Let us know what you think about the audio and which one is better. While the Insta360 One RS focuses on noise cancelling, I don't prefer the audio to be this dull if that's the case. The Hero 10's audio is quite smooth and will be my obvious choice. Now that that's out of the way, it's time for a special feature of the Insta360 RS, one that the GoPro Hero 10 actually doesn't have. Say hello to the automatic HDR mode. Our subs will know what I'm talking about since I mentioned the technological advancements in dynamic range algorithms a lot in our videos, but the One RS is able to maintain visibility of the background and the foreground at the same time, even when the sky is really bright, which is quite astonishing. The one downside though is that the color reproduction isn't exactly accurate, but it's still pretty impressive how it works. You're also able to keep the details visible in the foreground even when it gets too dark for the Hero 10. I'd love to see Insta360 improve this mode because with a small tweak here and there, this mode could be one of their main selling points as the results are promising. And so are the photos, by the way. I've probably said this before, you will use a phone camera 8 times out of 10. But if you don't have it with you or you're not able to access it, I can easily say that both of them take really good pictures and you won't be getting better quality than this with a rival device. Which leaves us with night footage. It's time to rejoice for Insta360 fans because just like in our previous comparison which had the Go 2, their devices pretty much perform better at night than the side of the GoPro. Don't expect flawless footage because no camera can shoot in these conditions unless you've paid an arm and a leg for a professional device, but at the very least, the noise should be under control. This precisely is a differentiating point between them as the GoPro Hero 10 has a lot of noise that's just impossible to ignore while the One RS is one step ahead. This was the main comparison between these two devices and I hope you enjoyed every bit of it. What I want to discuss now are the unique features of the Insta360 One RS and why you should buy this action camera. There are quite a few benefits to it, but to me, the most important benefit is the interchangeable lens system. Users can switch between the 360, 4K wide angle, and 1-inch wide angle lenses in comparison to the GoPro Hero 10 where you can only have one point of view while you're recording. The One RS also lets you upgrade individual parts of the system such as the lens, the core, or the battery in the future. It's also backward compatible with 1R mods. Also, the selfie stick is borderline invisible because the 360 lenses hide the stick from sight, enabling you to shoot yourself in third-person perspective while getting some cool aerial angles at the same time. Active HDR is also a unique feature. You can go ahead and check our footage as we already showed you right after I mentioned the 360 reframing. The dual lenses and the Insta360 app provide the ability to reframe your shot after the fact. All you have to do is swipe to find where you want to set a keyframe, then just hit the yellow plus sign on the timeline, which opens up a lot of opportunities for the user. Lastly, the One RS 4K lens packs a 48 megapixel sensor, which is larger than the one used by the GoPro. It also has a bigger aperture, which helps it capture better low light video as you saw in our footage. The 48 megapixel stills with 4K boost lenses have double the resolution of the 24 megapixel stills from the Hero 10. In conclusion, we really enjoy trying out these cameras and seeing what they're worth. Even though GoPro has pretty much become a household name in the action camera industry, I really appreciate Insta360 giving us feature after feature that GoPro doesn't have and allowing us to utilize their devices to shoot a lot of cool and unique footage that normally would not be available to us with any other brand. Also, the price of this device is also one of its main selling points. The Insta360 Twin Edition costs $590 and is basically an all-in-one device. Just switch the lens in a matter of seconds and you have a device with a completely different usage. On the side of GoPro, to have this 360 feature, you'll have to buy the GoPro Max, which costs $430. The GoPro itself also costs this much, so you'll be spending approximately $860 on two different devices. I don't know about you guys, but to me, that's a big difference. Make sure to leave your comments below about the performance of these two brands and tell us if you agree or disagree with our assessments. While you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep in touch with our future content. Thanks guys, until next time.